Welcome to One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, where we get curious about what makes us tick. We're here today with two women who are at the helm of the country's oldest student television station. Welcome, Liv Woodward and Meg Maguire. Thanks for coming along.
Hello, thank you for having us.
No, pleasure. It's the first time that we've had two people on the sofa.
Wow.
So this is a first.
Oh, it's an honour. Yeah.
Well, let's kick off by telling everyone how you spend your time now. What do you do?
I would say we spend a lot of our time doing I would say work. Normally if someone goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working, or I'm working. What that actually, means, I guess, can mean a whole different lot of things.
I mean, we do different things.
We're always working. I think we're always on a project, either whether that's like stuff to do with YSTV or stuff to do, on the occasional, I guess, a bit of uni work. Also doing, but mainly like other projects, stuff that interests us.
Yeah. I'm a writer outside of that, so I do a lot of like screenwriting and things like that.
And something we're going to come on to later on. I'd love to talk about the film.
Of course,
yes. Made as well.
Yeah, Another World.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that for
sure.
sure. Yeah. So tell me just a bit about YSTV. Tell me a bit about its background. What kind of things does it get involved with?
So, as you mentioned earlier, it's the oldest television station in England, student television station in England, and we do. It's more. I feel like a lot of times people go, "What does YSTV do? What do they specialise in?" It's kind of like easy to say what we don't do. We do a lot. We've got currently over 100 members. Completely entirely run by students. Kind of for students, but even anyone can really watch it. We've got loads of different departments. We've got like tech, and we've got the computing side of things. We've got obviously the production side, more like the admin kind of bits, and also marketing. And we do a whole different variety of productions. We do live shows. At the minute, we're doing live shows every single Friday. We do documentaries, whether that's long form documentaries, short form documentaries. We do sports broadcasts. We do just fun entertainment. We do scripted. We have like a writer's room that runs every single Monday. We have about, I think, on an average week, we have a minimum of 6 meetings a week, which is a lot.
Right.
Lots. Basically, there's always something going on, but we make just a whole different variety of videos for anyone to watch, and completely entirely done by students.
Yeah, and your viewing public is beyond the student population, right, as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we started joining, it was always kind of that mantra of by students for students, which I don't entirely disagree with. Obviously, it's all student run, and we want students are what make this station, make the society. But our audience isn't just limited to students, and I think particularly when we found with our film, we don't want to limit ourselves to just students. At the University of York, of course, that is a great audience and one that we definitely tap into. But the content that's coming out of YSTV and the content people are making can go beyond that. It reaches whole different types of audiences.
I think there's a stigma about like the student kind of television aspect of it is that it isn't good quality, and maybe it's not broadcast quality, but it's definitely like a showcase of. You can just make things, and I think that's the best thing about it, is that you can just come along and make anything that you want to do, obviously within reason, but there isn't really a guideline of what you can do. Just a limit to creativity on that, isn't there?
And just because it's made by students doesn't mean it should be considered any lesser. It can reach anyone, and I think I'm hoping that over our time we've really been able to see that kind of in full force. And hope to. Like in years to come. I know when we kind of took over as station director, that was something we said, that you can kind of think bigger and think outside, and it is kind of that mantra. I know it's cheesy, if you can just do it, and whatever you want to do, like be aspirational with it, be ambitious. Just because you're students doesn't mean that you should hold yourself back or anything like that.
I love that. I really do. I think we're very good in society at preconditioning people's expectations. And as you see that it's just student. Oh no, actually, the next Hollywood film director could be in YSTV now.
I think that's what it is when we said when we ran for station director, we said obviously I'm like everyone in that room is the next generation. I'm like a filmmakers or whatever. And if we set the precedent for kind of how we want the industry to look, in years to come, I think that's something that we can do at this level, and it'll carry on into the next generation.
We always say that networking, or when you want to go into this industry, everyone hammers into like how important networking is, speaking to people in the industry, which is so important. But also the work you're doing now by working with different students and people in different areas, that is networking, because they're the creatives of the future.
Yes.
They're the ones in the next few years who are going to be in the industry. So it's important to make those connections while you're young, and collaborate with different people, because it's just as important as working with people who have been in the industry like 20 years or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as well, it's good at this point. I'm like with us, you can make mistakes in stuff that you make, and it's not as high stakes, but it's just enjoyable. I think that's we like to push, especially, is just enjoying it and making things and having fun doing it.
And that's really important, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's a real opportunity here to run a substantial production team, a production outfit where you can make the mistakes. At relatively low stakes at this point as well, and why not? Because that's how we learn, isn't it? That's how we push the boundaries.
Yeah.
How did you end up being station directors?
Well, I mean, it was always something that when we joined the society, we said, and this isn't I might up ourselves how we don't sound, but as soon as we started, we were like, okay, we're going to run that one day. And like in our first year, we got the role of head of factual, like in the production team, and then it was just kind of a natural progression.
It was kind of crazy. So me and Liv met, I think, is important. We met, going right back, we met at university. We were put in a flat together in first year, and obviously it was COVID as well at that time. And we both kind of were on the same course at university, and both, I think I even said to you, I kind of want to join YSTV, and kind of looked at it. Freshers Weeks, we both kind of joined together. It was all on Zoom, so we were mainly doing stuff like in your bedroom, on like Zoom meetings, and like I remember our first ever production we did was like a short entertainment program, and they let us produce it, and we were like, we've never done anything this like big, and they like
with the thing, if we want to be a producer, and then we were like,
this is a lot of responsibility, we've only been here 2 weeks.
Okay.
And they like posted, I remember they left like a camera like in outside our flat, and we had
1890, if that means anything, it's like a really ancient camera,
and we had to like FaceTime people to try and work out how to use
turn
it,
it
and
on.
it was very all choppy, and then kind of from there we just continued making things. I remember when we got head of factual, we were elected as head of factual at the end of our first year, and we were like, oh, this is insane, like all this responsibility, and then now we run it, which is something that like I said, we always had ambitions too from like the beginning, obviously, like it's always one of those things, I'd love to run that someday,
it's
or
kind
you
of we're gonna run it
it was and then suddenly we did.
I tell you, I like what you say there, Liv, as well, is that not we'd like to, but we're going to.
I think with anything that we've done as well, we were kind of right, okay, we're going to do that. I think that's been our thing. This is how we kind of operate, but I think it's like a subconscious thing. We just operate as right, okay, we're going to just do it and see what happens, and that's kind of how we did the film as well. Like we'll talk about in a sec, but unlisted, we just kind of went, we'll just do it, and we did. But,
it's interesting how it always fascinates me what we think about and the role that plays, because I was in Berlin many years ago, and on the side of a building there was a quote that said thoughts become things, and they do. So if you say, I'm going to do that, well, you've certainly got a better chance of doing it than saying, I might not.
Definitely, and that's something we kind of push at YSTV, even like with the smallest production. I think our kind of mantra, if you will, or something I like to push is people come with all these amazing ideas, or they go to uni, whether it's to study film or whether it's to study a completely thing, and they're like, oh, I'd love to be able to make a film, or I'd love to be able to do this. And the whole point of YSTV is we're able to facilitate their creativity, in the sense of, you've got these ideas, but we're going to help you to be able to actually do it. And that's all we want to do, is be able to get people, it's like, I've always wanted to do that, or I'd love to do a film about this, or I've got this idea, and it's like, okay, well, now we can help you and equip you to be able to actually do it, which is the...
I've run writers' room a few times as well, because I've actually been a writer as well, and like I have like a few people who come up to me and say, I've got this idea for a script, I go, okay then, are you going to write it? And they go, oh, I don't know, and I go, just write it, and I learn from mistake. It's not really perfect first time, but that's the whole point of doing anything, is just kind of make drafts of it and do it. So I think it's just
And it's recognising, isn't it, as well, that there's so many different skill sets go into making a product as well. I mean, you mentioned a lot of people won't even think about that someone's actually had to write this script.
Even for live stuff as well, there's a lot of writing that goes into it. I think it's something that everyone looks over and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, even this has a script.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
We're getting all the secrets.
Yeah, thank you, Liv Berridge. Very well. Okay, so thinking about York Student Television as well, do you think this is something which is going to continue well into the future?
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it sounds funny because when you take over a station director, or that was our experience anyway, they hammer into you that the main thing you need to think about is legacy. Right. And I guess that is something that, you know, you kind of laugh about it, but it's something that like I'm very much considering now is, and it talks often about how student media has such a short lifespan in terms of every 3 years it's completely different people. It's completely different, and it changes on year-to-year basis, and it's about that balance between, yes, it's going to change, it's never going to be the same. So like I remember when we first started, we didn't have that much scripted content going on, and now all the new members and freshers coming in now they just love scripted content, and they're so talented writers. So I can very much see over the next years, okay, we're going to have a lot of more scripted content compared to like we do a lot of live stuff at the minute, and that's absolutely fine. But it's just about encouraging those next people, and kind of it's really rewarding in the sense of you kind of like, I don't want to be cheesy, but it's like you're passing on the...
You're passing it, it's like when we've just celebrated our 55th anniversary, and we were a big part of the planning of that, and just kind of, we had a moment where we were like, I'm like at one of the social nights, we sat back and just watched everyone, like all the alumni that were like in the 60s and that.
Yeah.
And it was just a really nice kind of moment, it's kind of like, this is all... we've achieved this, and this is all like a combination of everyone coming together. Yeah. It's fantastic just to watch.
That's quite interesting. So let me just delve in there a little bit. So 55 years.
Yeah.
55 years in the space of created media. A lot's happened.
Yeah. Completely.
We've got black and white kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just think about that. So 55 years ago, we hadn't even investigated any planet other than Earth at that point. We didn't have a pocket calculator, and the iPhone didn't exist. So, where do you think it's going next?
God, I mean, we've gone through COVID now, haven't we? That's a whole big thing. We have to kind of do that. I think it will continue to be great, if not better. Do you know what I mean? I just hope it continues.
There's the amount of like, you know, I mean, we're kind of both a bit nerds for talking about changing how TV landscape's changing in terms of like viewing habits and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think digital technology, particularly with social media, is just growing and growing. Yeah. And I think, you know, particularly like, you know, with TikTok and stuff like that, the rise of a lot shorter form content and it just being like so much more accessible, like in your hand. Like I don't know what would kind of come next, but it's like...
Yeah, I mean, we've done stuff where you film on your phone. Like, do you know what I mean? I've done content that you film on your phone because it's that accessible to do. And YouTube as well, you just put it out.
But,
do you know what I mean?
And the craziest thing, I think, is a lot of the time when people write off student television, it's like, well, it's not on, like, proper TV. It's not on linear TV. But now we're seeing that move away, like... away from linear TV. It's almost like, so what is that balance between what's proper TV and what's, you know, all TV's TV, I think. And, you know, those barriers to entry are almost breaking down. I think you'll see student television
come to the forefront.
Coming to the forefront more than ever.
And I hope it does, because it's a great showcase of, you know, active young talent.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in the industry are scared of new talent.
Oh, I think
and
absolutely
like, there's a big risk about it. And I hope that student television kind of breaks that barrier of entry for people. Yeah. And I think it will, honestly, I think it will.
So it strikes me that, you know, compared to 55 years ago, you know, the legacy which you are continuing to run now, it is so much easier for anyone to make some creative media.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose there's a responsibility that comes with that as well, in that it's very, very easy to misinform and mislead as well as it is to inform and lead. I'm interested in your thoughts on, you think, the role that creative media has in today's society now.
I think it's hard to just
sum up your entry to uni on this.
Yeah, I know.
Right, okay.
I
didn't know that.
She was going to bring that up. My first slide and my personal statement was the creative industries, I think, are the most powerful tool in the entire world, and I still agree with that. And it's cheesy as it is, it was a personal statement. So of course, I know I've gone all inspirational, but I do think it is the most powerful thing. Like, it's the only thing that can make, it changes people's opinions, it changes people's ideologies, it brings people together, it pulls people apart. Like, society, particularly, with it being more accessible than anything, is founded on creative media, and, it's in every single aspect of your life. So it is, it is like a big responsibility. I knew growing up, I always had a kind of a strong interest in politics, and I was like, oh, like, I'm a creative person, but also really interested in politics, and I was like, I want to, when you're younger and you're like, oh, I want to change the world, or like want to take part in that, do good. And then I kind of had that moment of realization that you can, why do the two have to be separate? You can bring them together.
Yeah.
If anything shapes society, surely it's media. So almost you have that responsibility and that power through entering in a career like that.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add that on a personal note, I mean, I've got cerebral palsy, and I think on screen and behind the scenes kind of representation is more important now than ever.
Yeah.
And I think being at the helm of something, like Wales TV, I think that's fantastic. And I had someone come up to me like at the start when I only first got it, one of my members, and they were like, "Oh, I've got a disability too. It's just great to have you at the, like, to kind of have us there." As things, and it's kind of something that I've never even thought about. You hear about it on like the news, and you go, "Oh, well, I'm representing you," and that's a massive responsibility. But I think it's great, and I can't quite comprehend it, but I think it's fantastic.
The thing for me, I do agree with you about it being influential. I think it is probably the most powerful platform in the world.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't get certain countries blocking it if they didn't think it was quite so influential, would they?
Exactly.
No names mentioned there at all. But I think the fact that it's so many more different aspects and walks of life and diversity is now so much accessible. Information is accessible to people now, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. Come on, I've got to get onto the film.
One.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about the film.
Okay. So basically, the film that we made together is Fit for Another World: The Legacy of Anne Lister. It's a documentary all about kind of who Anne Lister is, but more so her legacy. And it's kind of in line with the University of York opened a new college, Anne Lister College, and it was the first college to be named after a woman and an LGBTQ+ figure. And we were kind of sat in your room again
On Zoom.
on Zoom. Often happened in first year, not much else. Really. And you were a big fan of Gentleman Jack, the BBC programme.
Yes.
And we'd read the article that the press release that they'd announced it, and I was like, "Oh, you like that programme, Liv?" And we just started getting involved in YSTV. Well, we were. Somewhat.
Yeah, I think it was after Christmas, wasn't it? We were had made things by this point. We weren't completely new to it, so we were like, "Oh, maybe that would do a good report, like a 2-minute thing." Mm-hmm. And we were like, yeah, okay, so we pitched it, and they were like at the end of a production meeting, so I just kind of went, oh, just 1 second, and then
maybe we should do this, and they went, oh, that's good, yeah, do you two want to do it? And we were like, yeah, all right, thinking it's going to be 2 minutes, and then from then it just spiralled.
Yeah, for some reason, the publisher of Liv magazine, which is a big kind of LGBT magazine in the UK and Europe, and like the publisher, she follows me on Twitter for some reason, Linda Riley. I don't know why, she does, but I messaged her because I know they did a lot of coverage on it. I'm going to say the day after we came up with the idea, and within half an hour we got a response, and it was literally like all systems go. Yeah, I was there for about 8 months of filming and pre-production, so it was.
We remember we just kind of wanted to. We didn't know much about her aside from. I didn't even think I'd watched the full series at that point. No.
And I was passionate to do it.
Like Liv for ages and like watch it, and I was like, oh, it's not really my kind of thing, but I watched it and I loved it, and then. We had a meeting with one of the historians, Anne Chomer.
Right. Okay.
Who's interviewed in the in the film.
Yeah. And we had an interview with her, just to chat on Zoom to talk a bit about learn more about Anne Lister, and then she messaged us
at 8 o'clock at night.
8 o'clock before our meeting, and went, oh, do you mind if my friend Sally Wainwright pops on? Sally Wainwright obviously is one of Liv's biggest heroes ever. Liv brings me.
I get goosebumps now when I think about it. And you're like, check your phone. I was like, just seeing it. We were like screaming. I ran down the stairs. Mum was like, be quiet, I'm watching TV. I was like,
I don't understand.
Yeah. And
Sally Wainwright. I was like,
and she just popped on Zoom, and it's so crazy now. Like you were like texting her the other day.
Yeah, when Happy Valley came out, I emailed her and I was like, this is fantastic. She was like, oh, thanks, I'll catch up soon. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So it was.
It was one of those insane moments.
Yeah. And we got to go to Shibden Hall in Halifax, where Anne Lister lived.
Right.
Which is where I like the show is set in Halifax as well. We got to go visit there and interview Helena Whitburn and Anne Chomer. And Helena Whitburn, if I can draw attention to her for a second, is the most incredible woman ever. Recently just got an MBE.
Yeah, she
Um,
did.
kind of her efforts in the Alistair field, because I'm like Helena is the woman who first transcribed the diaries,
Okay.
and like released the books, and that's where like Emma kind of lit the fuse, for kind of Alistair, in that field, and it all became a thing after her kind of. But
I think
yeah, she was fantastic speaker, because the history and her knowledge behind that, and she was really open and generous with her time, and it's one of those pinch me moments I think for us.
Yeah.
And we were listening to her, and like, I could just her passion and the stuff she was saying. We were just kind of like, I can't believe like we're in this room hearing all of this stuff, and it was amazing, wasn't it? Just listen to her speak, especially.
Sounds like I mean, leave alone the output of the film, the experience of creating the film sounds like it's been pretty monumental.
It was completely, and I feel like a lot of filmmakers say this, but it was completely unexpected. Like, we had no idea that it was going to happen. We did everything. We were quite cheeky with everything. We just emailed people, and like, luckily the people in the like the Alistair fandom are just more than willing to give up any of their time for it, and it was proper. I was so grateful for that. And looking back at it,
my favourite thing about doing documentaries or that kind of work is, and Alistair is a perfect example of it, is you learn as you go with it. We had no idea that basically, I think the one thing about Alistair that's always going to stick with me is this huge community of people behind Alistair, like, because of Gentleman Jack and, you know, the diaries and the books. There's this huge group of people who are so passionate and so phenomenal people that we were kind of accidentally fell into. Like, we had people
even Brazil.
We had people from Brazil.
On the first day of filming, we got a comment of like an icon account that was Alistair Brazil or something like that, and they were like, "Oh, wish we were there." And we were like, "What?
We're just ordinary people who
Yeah.
And then even the other day, another pinch me moment.
Oh, we got like a fan edit of the
Someone made a
documentary.
fan edit of the film, and
Like,
we were like,
chopped it up and put subtitles, and we were like, I just came across it like on Instagram. I was like, I think that's ours. Like, and I was like, oh wow.
and
That's brilliant.
it's just crazy. And
I think as well, if I just make a point about Alistair as a person, I think, especially making a documentary, I think, I'm like, especially for queer history, kind of LGBT history month as well, I think Alistair's one of those hidden gems, and I think putting her on a platform, playing a small part in that, putting her on an even bigger platform, is something that I think I might never take for granted and always kind of do, because I think how a lot of queer people, like, their history is inaccessible or hidden away, or like in some countries you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
And just being able to do that is just something that was kind of mind blowing to do. So.
What do you hope that people who watch the film take from it?
what we hope is people almost just, even if one person could learn about who she was. There's a moment in the film where they talk about when they first kind of found out about Anne Lister, and it was like, why do people not know about this figure? But also, it's not only the fact that she was so, ahead of her time somewhat, and inspirational, but also, this my favourite bit in the film is that we don't shy away from. She wasn't very nice. She wasn't a very nice person.
A women's rights advocate at all.
She wasn't.
Right.
She wasn't a perfect person, but there's a line in it where it goes, she wasn't a perfect person, but that's okay. That people are more complicated. People have got layers to them. She was a real person, and I don't agree with a lot of stuff that she did, but it's about understanding that, and
you can be flawed, but still make an impact.
Yeah,
and I think it's
her impact is just insane. To just talk about one story, when we first ever showed the documentary, we got invited to Anne Lister birthday weekend, which was a celebration of her life in Halifax. We got invited to go, and we were just going to show the documentary. It was the first cut of it, no one had seen it before.
Alongside the BBC as well,
yeah.
That was great.
So then we got there.
On TV and they're like, here are you. We were like, sorry.
Yeah, and then we went, and the BBC was showing their documentary about how Gentleman Jack changed so many people's lives, and they were premiering that for the same time, but like before they showed theirs, they showed ours, and we were a bit like, ooh.
Yeah, I think someone came up to me afterwards and was like, I thought it was going to be crap, it's just some of the students, but actually that was actually really good. And I was like, thank you. Like, she literally said that, and I was like, oh, well, thanks for being honest.
That's great though, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
We had a moment that I think this is the biggest pinch me moment about that was, we showed the documentary and then they did a short panel afterwards. and like everyone was like, we loved it and asking us questions.
We had
and
so
then,
many questions. Like,
and
we got cut off, didn't we?
yeah, and then someone asked us, how did you fund the documentary? And we went,
it was skint.
As a funding. They were like, how much funding did you have? And we were like, funding. Yeah, because you know it was all student made, and we were like, you know, we paid for some taxis out of our own pocket. Yeah. Me and Liv put, you know, we didn't have a lot of money, but we like paid for taxis and everything else, was, you know, through the student television.
Yeah.
And then some woman like stood up and
in protest.
And went, that's not fair. We need to give you money. And we were like, oh no, it's
like,
fine.
No, they do it for me.
And
I
then
can't do that for
no, you don't.
Me.
And then they started a top hat. They got a top hat.
They sent
round a top hat round this audience of like, it was about 200 people.
Yeah.
And everyone just put money in. And then the mayor of Halifax came up and gave us like this sandwich bag of money to fund, like, you know, to put forward to the film and to the students, you know, television. And it was just, it was just insane.
That's a special moment.
Yeah, it was. I would probably definitely one of my highlights.
Yeah.
And then
I think being in that room in general, and when like after they'd all watched it, the applause that we got, and we all had to go up, and it was just like there was a room packed full of people. And that was, they had like a break, like an interval afterwards, and like I went to just try and go to the toilet. I couldn't go because people were stopping me like every 5 seconds. And I felt like a celebrity. It was quite weird.
Yeah, and we were like, but we just came up with like, it was just insane. Like words can't even describe how it was. And
I still can't really process that evening because it was
just
insane. The
amount of the reception.
And people were so lovely as well. They just wanted to know everything about what we'd done. And
so I guess a couple of questions then come to mind off that as well. Is now that you've done that and you've got that reception because you really feel as if you created something that you really wanted to do and you got that reception. What next? What does that mean?
You know what? I knew that was coming.
I think, if anything, one thing about Anne Lister is I'll watch it back now and I'll still think that was the first proper long form documentary that we'd ever done.
It was the first thing we ever made together.
Yeah, a proper thing we'd ever made. That was the first thing, and there's so many things I do differently now.
Oh my god, yeah. There's some major sound issues in some of it.
And some of the technical stuff, we're like, why did we do that? But obviously, we were first years. We didn't know anything, and we started it in COVID. Like, it was such a learning curve. And then it was always that thing of like, okay, so now
what? Have we peaked there at 7,000 views, maybe?
Yeah.
But no, I think because I think it put a lot of things in perspective. Kind of us working together. We now know that we're going to go on and continue working together for hopefully. And
we've got
stuck with me now.
Yeah, we've got, and obviously after that we became station director shortly after the documentary came out, because we kind of wanted to go. We had such an amazing experience with making the documentary. I just want to be able to help, as I mentioned before, like facilitate other people's creativity and tell them that they can do this as well. And we've got plans, and we've spoken about lots of different things about, obviously I know we're only station director for a few more months, and about what we want to do next, and we've got projects in the works.
Yeah, we've got projects in the works.
Again, I think it's just that attitude of, again, like we mentioned before, that you just have to do it. You just have to bite the bullet, and just that's the only, especially in this industry. Yeah. That's how you get anywhere. It's just,
and I think
just do it.
Yeah, and I think not to be cringe as well. Doing this job, like, I'm like alongside your best friend is something you can only ever dream about. Yeah. And, watching that project back, it will always have a special place in my heart, because obviously I did it with Meg, and like a lot of my close friends as well were involved in the making of it as well. So I think us that we cherish a lot of that, like the friendship as well, comes out on that. So
that's brilliant. Yeah. And it comes across even just talking to you both here as well.
Join at the hip.
So, next, what would you both like to, let's think about sort of post-university, post-YSTV, where's the future? Where would we see you? What will you be doing?
I've always said, and I'm going to say this now because I've never said it publicly,
so
I can be held to account.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I have always, there is part, like, I don't know. There's parts of me that's like, there's loads of different things I want to do, but I do have like a passion for TV, particularly public service broadcasting. I love a public service broadcaster, because I think, going back to the whole point, TV is,
you know, one of the most powerful things. I think having a public service TV is just, you know, to do good, and is very, very important to me, and something I would strive to continue to make sure carries on in the future. So I'd love to work, you know, like, say, dream job, I don't know, like director head of Channel 4, director general of BBC, that kind of thing. That's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I want to fight to, like, particularly save, you know, in the current climate about public service television. I think it's so important. But, you know, like we said before, we have plans to continue.
Yeah, plans have been very vague because it's just kind of, it's coming to in itself now. So hopefully
we've got a lot of stuff going on at the minute that is all about, again, facilitating that creativity, and I think there's a gap at the minute in the industry,
and we're hoping to get in that.
That basically you have,
if that makes sense.
There's a gap in the industry at the minute about young creatives, and okay, so you might be doing student television at once, or you might have made your film, but how do we get that on TV? How do we go from there? And I think very much that is something we are eager to address and make sure that young creatives, you know,
they're getting the recognition that they deserve.
And when you mention TV here as well, when you're talking about getting on TV, do you mean terrestrial public service TV as opposed to a streaming service? Is there important, or is that
discriminate? I think it's finding the balance of them working together. I mean, like, I'm like I mentioned that I'm a writer, and I've got several projects in the works now, and I'm starting a placement at Emmerdale next week. I'm like as a training script editor, so it's kind of, I think we just want to explore actually where it's going and things like that, and just
TV,
kind of explore it.
In the traditional sense, TV, and I mentioned it about student TV earlier. TV in the what is TV now? Do you know what I mean? It's not just public service broadcasters. That's not the definition of TV. Is what on Netflix, is that then the sole definition of TV? TV is such a broad term, and it's ever evolving. Like I said, like, to the point I still class student television. Yes, in some sense, an industry definition.
For a public service broadcaster.
Well, I mean, you know, I suppose it's
the barriers what is television is a really big question. It's got so many different roots, and whatever the form that takes, and it's just, the industry is always evolving, so it's about evolving with it. And
maybe that needs a documentary.
There you go. Maybe that's the next one.
I mean, it's interesting. We talk about television, but that name actually comes from the device that 55 years ago it was watched on.
Exactly. So the definition is always evolving. So it's.
And I think we're just discovering what we both want to do as well. Because actually, Meg's more factual. I'm more kind of I'm like a script entertainment kind of person. So I think it's figuring out what we want to do, like, as a separate people, but obviously, and like what we can do together. I think as well. So,
Well, look, I could go on talking to you folks for ages because this is fascinating. But I guess there's two things I need to ask. So first of all, where can people see the Anne Lister programme?
So if you look on our YouTube channel at Yorkshire Student Television, if you put Fit for Another World, The Legacy of Anne Lister, or just put Anne Lister in, it will come up.
It's actually the second most popular video on our channel, so you can find it pretty easily. Not to our own hands, but it is there.
And for people who don't currently follow YSTV on YouTube, how do they find YSTV on YouTube?
Just search Yorkshire Student Television on YouTube, or look at any of our socials.
It's either
YSTV, Yorkshire Student Television, it will come up. Brilliant.
I'm on TikTok now as well. So.
And please subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Okay. So my last question is this, and I ask every guest this as they come through. Knowing what you know now, and what a journey you've had, but knowing what you know now, if you could, let's assume we can conquer time travel, and you could write yourself a letter to your younger self and leave that letter for you to find somewhere, what would you write to yourself, knowing what you now know?
Firstly would be embrace the uncertainty. I think that's something I'm still very much learning now. I'm like to have everything organised and planned out, but particularly in this industry, things just happen, but that's not a bad thing. Just go with it. And, you know, for example, like, I couldn't tell you where, like, I could tell you where I'd like to be, but I couldn't tell you right now where I'd be in the next 5 years. But I never could have predicted Anne Lister would happen. I could never have predicted, you know, meeting you, stuff like that. So it's just embracing that and just going with it and kind of seeing what happens. There's nothing wrong with not knowing exactly what's going to come out of something. Just do your absolute best and be ambitious and see where it goes. And then the other bit would just be kind of what we mentioned. I don't want to be like a Nike advert. Is it Nike? That's like, just do it. Just do it. But just do it. Like, I had, if you want to do something, you just have to push yourself, bite the bullet, do it. And I think that's something that just tell myself earlier on, just make things, just have a go.
Yeah.
Have a go and embrace the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
What would I tell my younger
go on,
self?
Liv, what would
No
you
pressure.
Oh God, you kind of hit the nail on my head there.
Yeah.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I have got a disability, and I think it was always hard growing up because I was in and out of hospital a lot. And it's okay to not have a clue what's happening. Like things are always around the corner.
Embrace the uncertainty.
Embrace the uncertainty. But I mean, like, I'm not that much different from anyone else. I mean, yeah, I walk a bit weird, but that's about it. If you want to do something that you really want to do, try it. And maybe if you see someone called Meg Maguire on Facebook, and you you see the back of her head on a Facebook profile picture, don't be scared by it. Just go, oh, it's Meg.
Yeah.
But embrace the uncertainty.
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible. It's all going to be fine. But yeah, don't worry about the future. Just kind of, I can embrace the now. I think.
The moment.
I focus on the moment. I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you both ever so much.
Thank you for
coming
having
along.
us.
That's great.
Thank you.
So this has been One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers and our guest this week, Liv and Meg. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do like and subscribe. If you'd like to look at our other episodes, you can find them on your usual podcast provider on the YouTube channel. So I hope you have enjoyed it. So if you have been, thanks for listening.